I remember at the time being like flabbergasted. Like I was so shocked. I'm like, no, if you say he has to go back in, he has to go back in. What do you mean? The trainer that was hosting the clinic, she was trying to take one of her horses back into his stall area, and he didn't want to go back. And they were like trying to coax him in, and they were doing it all with targeting. They weren't forcing him. And he like didn't want to go in, and they were like, okay, well, we'll ask again in a few minutes or whatever. And I remember at the time being like flabbergasted. Like I was so shocked. I'm like, no, if you say he has to go back in, he has to go back in. What do you mean he doesn't have to go back in? That doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? You're just teaching him bad habits, all that stuff, right? Obviously, I was still very new in my journey at the time. So it brought up a lot for me. Still, obviously, it sticks in my mind as like this pivotal moment where I saw this. And I remember even sharing it with some of my friends who were also exploring clicker training and positive reinforcement at the time and thinking like, yeah, no, that's not acceptable. Like at the end of the day, they have to do, I remember us all, sorry, there's a bunch of hay in my pockets from the chopped hay. I remember us all like agreeing after after we saw that, like, yeah, that was ridiculous. We would never do that. That looks so dumb, kind of thing. I feel like that's perfectly normal to have that kind of reaction when we've been raised and trained and conditioned to view our interactions with our horses so differently from what I'm doing now. And that action of my horse not wanting to go into the pen and me just letting them have that opinion and not do it is such a threat to, or such an opposite thing from what I should be doing according to traditional training, according to what I was raised to practice, according to what has been normalized in the horse world, and is the idea of letting your horse do what they want to do and not insisting or forcing them to do something. The idea of that has been conditioned to believe that that will lead to a dangerous horse. And that will lead to a lack of leadership and a lack of trust even, and that our horses won't look to us for guidance, and that it will become unsafe and the horse will become unruly and spoiled and a brat to be around. And so, of course, you shouldn't do those things. And that's just not true. Now, caveat here is that I strongly believe in structure. I strongly believe in consistency, predictability, guidance for our horses. I don't usually use the word leader because it's become such a misused and misunderstood word in the horse world. But when we think about what a really good leader is to humans and human leader, like when you think of like a really good boss, or even not from a work perspective, but just a leader in thought, or a leader in their industry, or a leader in a certain kind of, we could even look at the leaders of, more like within a niche area of a certain type of interest. So there's a couple of leaders in even the clicker training for horses world, right? There's the leaders of that area. So when we look at those kinds of, like, what makes them good leaders? Is it because they come in here and make you do the things you don't want to do? Or is it because they provide information and structure and guidance and are slow to frustration, and they are slow to impatience, and they are slow to do things that are like petty, or to be passive aggressive or gossip? Like they show qualities that are or not above those things, but like they don't get involved in those things, right? They walk their talk, and they present themselves professionally, and they show a way of being and doing in this world. And then if it's more of in a work context, or you're directly connected with this person and they are literally your leader / boss, take me to your leader, maybe you do have to answer to them a little bit more than just a figure in our, in an industry or in an area, a figurehead kind of thing. But for those people, a really good boss, again, they provide structure, they provide reinforcement, obviously through pay, right? They should pay you. Hopefully your bosses are paying you. But it's more than that. Like, what makes them a good boss? They try and set you up for success. They provide you a healthy working environment. They give you structure and systems and processes that can help when things get difficult, but also make things less difficult less often, right? So they are really intentional with their antecedent arrangement. They're really intentional with the antecedent arrangement, so the work environment, all of that. And they're really consistent and structured in their training programs, how they coach you and mentor you and teach you to do your job properly, or show you how if needed. If things get difficult, they're there to help you out. They show up to work consistent. They're not back and forth all over the place. Today they're, your best friend, and tomorrow they're your nemesis or just railing on you, right? So they're consistent emotionally and mentally too. They show up as a strong figure, a strong person, and consistency. And then additionally, they also provide that reinforcement, right, of the pay, or even in verbal praise. So there's other kinds of reinforcement they might offer. So when I look at leaders for horses, again, I don't use this word often because of how misunderstood it is. And I don't get an opportunity to give all this nuance on social media. I believe in doing all that for our horses. I believe in being that person for my horses. I consider it more of being like their guide, I could say leader if we wanted, that's fine. However you want, whatever word you want to use to operationalize everything I just said. I think that structure and consistency and predictability are key foundational aspects of that healthy, trusting relationship, where my horse can look to me and be like, what do I need to do? I don't know what to do here. Like, tell me. And when shit hits the fan, when things get messy, do my horses look to me? Because they can, because they know that when all else is falling, when the sky is literally falling, what is the most predictable, the most reinforcing, the most trustworthy, the most consistent thing in their life at that moment? Me, right? That's what I want to be. I want to be the one that's going to get them out of trouble. That's going to be like, you don't know what else to do, come to me. Like, I got this, right? I'm reliable. So I would encourage you guys to show up for your horses with consistency, with structure, with clarity. That means clean training loops. It means antecedent arrangements arranged for their success. It means putting together systems and processes that are good for you and your horse. It means being clear and consistent with your cues and the application of your cues and when you're giving them. For example, when we were doing the ground pulls, it would be so easy for me to ditch my leading cues because we're doing ground pulls now. So I just forget about it, right? It would be really easy for me to do that, but I'm like, no. And I even did it a few times and I was like, nope, no. Leading cues stay the same. We are technically still in a leading kind of situation. I don't want to ask her to do something that would break her other stuff, and then that would perpetuate, or that would lead into inconsistency, being unreliable, and lack of predictability. Okay, but if I can keep this is my walk forward, this is my default, this is my back, even when we're doing a different exercise, in my mind, this will perpetuate, this will encourage, this will deepen that belief that I am, and the actual practice of that I am consistent, I am predictable, I am reliable. Okay. That's a practical application of what I'm talking about. So I 100% believe that. Now, that being said, let's go back to the fact that I was leading June into her pen and she broke her target following and just left. She exited stage right. She was our left and she was like, I'm done. I want to go explore. I want to go do other things. And I said, okay, that's fine. You can go do that. Is that in direct conflict with everything I just said, where now I'm unpredictable, like I didn't insist on doing this. I didn't insist on being consistent with this and then making her do it. No, I don't think so. And the reason is I was still consistent. I was still doing everything the same. I still stuck with our routines, everything. She made a different decision. By me not insisting that she stay with me, There is a positive and a potential negative but only if it's repeated a bunch of times. So the positive is that I show her that she has autonomy, that I will respect her wishes, that I will, that she's not trapped, she's not forced to do any of this, and that will deepen our relationship and our trust. She'll be more willing to do things in the future. Her yeses will become stronger. They will be more genuine yeses because she has the option to say no. So there's lots and lots of benefits here. The downsides, though, the negatives are that possibly if she breaks the behavior, like if she leaves and she goes and gets reinforced somewhere else, like getting Cashmere's hay, and doesn't have to go back into the pen, that behavior of going back into the pen when I ask her to is going to get weaker, and we're going to have more difficulty there the more times it happens, especially if they happen in close succession. So potentially we could have a problem down the road if it happens often, but it's not going to be a problem for one-off situations. So the third side of this is I need to figure out why she said no to going back in her pen, because I can't have it happening over and over and over again, because that's going to become a problem later on, especially when I don't have the option to leave her out, because this is the other practical part of it is I can't always leave her out. I can't always let her say no. But I don't want to put us in a situation where she's like, I really want to say no. And I'm like, you really can't, right? We don't want to butt heads. We don't want to have this conflict show up. So what's an alternative option? What's something else we could do? How could we resolve this and make sure that if she genuinely, like if I genuinely needed her to go back into her paddock, she would go in if I asked her to. We make going into the paddock more reinforcing. We create a new system to set her up for success, set us both up for success, and we problem solve together so that we have good outcome that we both desire at the end, which is that she wants the paddock probably to be more reinforcing, right? So can we continue doing our training sessions in there? Can there be some enrichment waiting for her in there? Maybe she feels stressed by the horses crowding the gate. Like what are the things, right? What is making going into the pen less awesome than staying outside? It's my job as the leader, as the guide, as the trainer to sort that out before I ask her to do it again. And it may take some trial and error, because I may think it's the horses crowding the gate, but it maybe ends up not being. Maybe it's because the paddock isn't enriching, right? So it may take some trial and error to figure out the right solution. But the point is that I'm trying. And then the second thing I really need to do is we need to practice it. We need to practice a lot of when I ask you to go in, it's very reinforcing. I'm going to click feed. We're going to break it down into smaller approximations. We're going to set us up for success. So, all of this, we're going to have a shaping plan, clean loops, so that she's now like, oh, going back into the pen is awesome. And I know exactly what to do. So that's going to help with the future, right? The third thing that we can think about too is, or really another potential situation that could arise here is, let's say I haven't had time to fully complete that process yet of going into the paddock reinforcing. And she says no, and I say, but we really do have to, or like, I really do need her to go in. And what do we do? What do we do in those situations? Well, for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop. And I'm going to see if I can redraw her attention back to me. By stopping, I mean, I'm not going to like have this immediate reaction like, oh, you have to come inside. I'm going to try and pause, have a moment, consider the situation. Could I maybe distract Sugar further away? Could I maybe go grab an enrichment activity? Do I have 30 seconds to help us out here? That it doesn't require making her go inside this very second. Like really realistically, do I have 30 seconds? Most of the time, yes. Most of the time, I even have a little bit more than that. So I'm going to let her go do her 30 seconds of whatever. I'm going to grab her enrichment activity. I'm going to go distract Sugar. I'm going to may even put her halter and leader up on, because she knows what that means, because we've practiced it with so much, positive reinforcement and all that. So I'm going to strengthen or kind of clarify the activity and the cues. I'm going to add another layer of cues onto the situation. I'm going to break it down a little bit. I'm going to ask her to do smaller approximations and work us into the pen. So again, it's not us battling it out. I'm not confronting her. I'm problem solving in the moment. Now, let's say emergency, true emergency. that, oh, and I might even use a higher value reinforcer if I really need to. Usually I don't need all of that. Usually it's, I just need to up the rate of reinforcement, and then that fixes it and she goes in, and then I just leave her extra when we're inside, right? That's most of the time the quickest, fastest solution. But sometimes I need a little bit more, and that's okay. And this doesn't happen very often. I think I can think of like on 2 occasions in the last year that this has happened. It's not like it's happened on a regular basis, which tells me in general, we're doing really good. Okay, so let's say true emergency, there's a tornado coming or there's a fire and you don't have 30 seconds to get her into the pen. You have to get her in this very second. I'm going to, in the moment, up my rate of reinforcement significantly and try and draw her attention to me. But if I have some higher value on me, I might bring that out too and start using that. Usually that'll work though. If I don't have that much time, I happen to have a lead rope on me, or honestly, I've even taken off my sweater before and used it as like to wrap, like using the arms of it to wrap around the neck, which is funny, but I've done it before. I'll just kind of put that over the neck and then give a little walk forward cue with the, I mean, it's not like I'm pulling on her. It's just like actually you have a rope on and you know what the rope means, which means walk forward. And she's like, oh, okay. And then they just go forward. So there's different things you can do. But again, the point is like, we're practicing ahead of time so this doesn't end up being a huge problem in the future. If this becomes a huge problem, or if you're in situations like this regularly, there's something missing. There's something going on. We need to talk about it.